Hey folks, today, I wanted to actually talk about a very important subject. Now, you know what? One of the things I hear over and over and over again in the Mormon faith is this, that we have the restored church, that they tell people all over the world, hey, listen, we have the restored church. And so that's kind of an odd thing to hear constantly. Like, we have the restored church over and over and over again. You hear it with all the talks, the conferences. It's just, Nelson is saying, hey, we have the church that was restored. Well, I got to tell you something. I want to address this pretty clear today and talk about it a bit and discuss it so that you guys can get some real good insight on what I'm going to share with you. Now, you got to realize there was a great awakening in the late 1700s to early 1800s. It was the American way of thinking about Christianity, that they believed that there was a fallen church and that there needed to be a restored church. It was called the Great Awakening again. And it came around. There were many churches that were part of this sort of Great Awakening, right? And it was in America. Now, I want you to realize something, guys. Christianity did not start in America. It started in the East. It started in Turkey, Syria. It started out in Jerusalem. It started in all over Alexandria. And I'm going to talk about this today because it's really important for you to know the truth. I have a number of people who ask me, Dave, I want to know truth. I'm so tired of being deceived, okay? Now, I'm going to share what I know, and you can do whatever you want, but I'm going to tell you to test it, okay? Because I'm at the point in my life where I have tested it and validated it and went thousands and thousands of hours. I actually just finished a class on the history of the church, the first 500 years, and I'm going to tell you straight out, test it. I mean, when I decided that I wasn't going to get involved in a religion, I didn't want to go that direction. It wasn't something that I really desired in my heart. But after really understanding the history of Christianity, you had to make a decision. You have to make that. And I'm going to tell you just straight out what I've learned. Okay, so the question I have is, what is this restored church that Mormonism is talking about? What restored church, right? What is this restored church? Because we've got to go back to the actual concept of the statement that they're making. We have the restored church. So what is the restored? Where is it? What happened to it, right? Those are important questions to ask. Wouldn't you agree? So what we got to talk about is this particular question. And I've got to tell you, over and over and over again, I've talked to a number of people, and usually Mormons said, well, the church died. It died after the apostles. They had the priesthood, and after they had the priesthood, the church fell. That's their belief. And so I'm like, really? It fell? The church fell at that point? The priesthood was lost? There was no more priesthood, and it just collapsed, right? So let me go over some things that I've learned, and I want to share with you. And you could search all this out. I'm going to give you the scriptures, and I'm going to share this with you. So just bear with me a little bit, okay? So one of the things I want to talk to you about is, the Lord of hosts, God, revealed that in the future, the Gentiles were going to declare that the God of Israel was going to be their God. And this is from the Lord of hosts in Malachi 1:11. And it says, from the rising of the sun, even to its going down, my name shall be great among the Gentiles. In every place, incense shall be offered to my name, and a pure offering. For my name shall be great among the nations, says the Lord of hosts. Now, this is Malachi. You got to realize something. This is the Old Testament. Gentiles were involved in what? Paganism. They weren't involved in believing in the God of Israel, right? So, but God is declaring right here that his name is going to be great among the Gentiles, and that's us, right? You got to realize that. It's really important. But it says right here, in every place, incense shall be offered to my name, and a pure offering. Now, I'm going to tell you that incense is a very important part. Why? Well, it's God declaring that, first of all, right? And he's saying that incense shall be offered to his name and a pure offering. So what is a pure offering? When we look at a pure offering in the church, we understand that a pure offering is really the Eucharist. When we believe, and I could validate all this, and please test it. This goes on from the very beginning of the church, that Jesus even shared it in John 6. He talks about that, in order to have me abide in you and I in you, you have to eat of my body and my blood. You shall have eternal life. And that's all over in John 6:53 to 66. And I share that a number of times. But you got to realize, for the faith, the pure offering really is the Eucharist, the real presence of Christ being with us in the bread and the wine. And so it's a very important thing, but that clearly teaches that. Now, another thing I want to talk to you about is in the scriptures in Matthew. You've heard this many times, Matthew 16:18. It says, and I also say unto you, Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades shall not prevail against it. We believe that. We don't believe Jesus is a liar. We don't believe, like the Mormons believe, it had to be restored. It failed. That Jesus, in essence, was a liar. We do not believe that. We hold true to that belief that he built his church, and his church is still here today with us. Okay? And also, I want to talk to you about 1 Timothy 3:15. Look at it. Study this out. Paul says this, but if I am delayed, I write so that you may know how you ought to conduct yourself in the house of God, which is the church of the living God, the pillar and ground of the truth. And so you got to realize that Paul was teaching this. He was teaching this emphatically, that the church is in essence the church of the living God and the pillar and ground of truth. We know that there was a church in the New Testament, no doubt about it. Have you ever heard the name Christians? Where did it come from? Well, you're going to hear it right here. Acts 11:26. It says, and when he had found him, he brought him to Antioch, right? So it was that for the whole year they assembled with the church. This was Paul and Peter and Barnabas. I mean, these are great people. There was a church of Antioch, right? We know that it was established. We know that it was set up. And they taught a great many people, and the disciples were first called Christians in Antioch. Now, you guys got to realize something. Guess what? Well, I got baptized and chrismated in the church of Antioch. That's who I am. So my actual baptism goes directly back to Peter and Paul. It's called an apostolic church, okay? Now, Peter also said this. This was in Acts 12:5. It says that Peter was therefore kept in prison, but constant prayer was offered to God for him by the church. Church is always right. You put in church, okay? Go to BibleGateway.com. Put in search bar church. Look at it. Church was a big part of the New Testament. They developed a church. It was traveling. It was in Antioch. It was in Rome. It was in Alexandria. We get to see all of this. It was in Jerusalem, right? And what was this church? I talked about this concept of Mormonism. They keep saying that we have the restored church, right? So was their church, they said that restored, actually this church? Not at all. Not at all, because this church that still is in the New Testament, I'm going to tell you straight out, still exists, okay? And we know that. And so where do we find that? Well, let's take a look at what's the hierarchy of this church. We got to look at the hierarchy. Well, what was it, just like apostles and prophets all the time? No, of course not. There were bishops, there were deacons. The apostles went out and built churches. Now, this is what I want to share with you a little bit. But before I do, it's in Philippians 1:1. It says right here, Paul and Timothy, bondservants of Jesus Christ, to all the saints in Christ Jesus who are in Philippi, with the bishops and deacons. Who were the bishops? Why did they have bishops? I thought it was just apostles, right? No, they had a hierarchy of bishops and deacons and elders, right? We know that. We know that because that's what the New Testament church was. They developed a church. Now, the real question is, can Mormonism prove that this church actually fell? They claim again, and I have to ask this again, they say that they have the restored church. What church did they restore? Right? We have to ask that question. What church did they restore? So, what I'm going to tell you right now is that there was a church. We know that. The apostles went out. And, people ask me all the time, Dave, give us some more information. I'm giving it to you right now. The apostles went out. Their purpose was to go out and do the Great Commission. Where did they go? Well, they developed churches. We know that. Antioch. We know that. They developed in Rome. We know that it was in Jerusalem with James. We also know that Mark, who was an apostle, where did he go? He went to Alexandria. He started the Church of Alexandria. We also know that Andrew went up to Byzantine. We know that he went further up, and became the Church of Constantinople, right? So there were sees. Now, these are important to understand. Sees. They were called, the different churches were sees. They were centers, right? They were like large areas within that center that a number of the bishops, the overseers, that's why I'm explaining this to you, they're called sees, because after the apostles died, they gave what? They gave the authority, ordained the bishops. The bishops continue to ordain, lay the hands upon the heads of other bishops, and bishops lay their hands upon the heads of priests and elders. And we know that because that's the truth, right? And so if you study that, you'll find it. There are 5 specific areas that the church developed: the Church of Rome, the Church of Constantinople, the Church of Alexandria, the Church of Jerusalem, and the Church of Antioch. These are all, they were founded by the apostles, and the apostles continued, right, to multiply the church. They kept growing and growing and growing. That's why it's so important to understand this, because I always tell people, don't go west, go east. If you're going to learn something about Christianity, you need to learn what happened in the East, the beginning of the church, the Christian church, not after the Reformation, right? The Reformation came from the Church of Rome, and I've got to tell you that it was after there was a schism going on in 1054 between the Church of Rome and the 4 other churches, right? Those are the Eastern churches to the Church of Rome. There was a schism because there were definite, and that was a hard thing. I mean, because certainly we love the Church of Rome, but when there was a split, it was like part of that church left, and then it became the Roman Catholic Church, but the Eastern churches still maintained themselves. Now, I was baptized in the Church of Antioch. I could validate and prove everything to you that we have the Orthodox apostolic succession from the apostles, right? From Peter. Now, you're going to ask me, say, okay, Dave, this is fine. This is interesting stuff. I like to learn more things. And this is why I'm trying to help you. One of the things that I need to share with you is we know that after the majority of the apostles died, and I think it was 72 where Thomas was killed in India. He was speared, but there were many apostles died before that. But we know one apostle who didn't die until 100 AD. So we have the Bishop of Rome, the beginning, the Apostolic Father, who was actually ordained by Peter. And then we also have Ignatius, who is the Bishop of the Church of Antioch in 60 68 AD, ordained by John, right? And then we also have Polycarp, who also had a relationship with John and ordained. We know that. That was the experience of the apostolic fathers being ordained by the priesthood. They continued to have this priesthood after and before the apostles died, and during the apostles, they were ordaining bishops. They were the overseers of all this area. Very, very important to learn that. Now, this is all why I'm excited about the Eastern Orthodox Church, because it's really, I look at the Roman Catholic Church, and yes, there were absolute changes that were made. We don't believe ultimately that those changes were accepted by an ecumenical council from the church. So you have to learn about ecumenical councils. You got to learn all about that. And that's an important thing. I can't teach all this in just a quick video, but I do want to share that. Please investigate how the church continued to grow and multiply. So we know that the church continued from the actual New Testament church that there were many, many martyrs. There were many bishops. It was growing extensively, but there are many who died for Christ in the church. No doubt about that. In Rome, in different places, in Turkey, there were great martyrs, thousands and thousands and thousands. And this was much after the apostles. There's no doubt. So when Mormonism says that we have the restored church, and we claim that we actually have this church is still in existence today, yes, there were issues. But did it fail? Did it collapse? Absolutely not. We are still here today, 2,000 years later, still within the church from the apostolic fathers, no doubt. And so anybody who doesn't know that, it's important to know. I have a lot of people addressing me and they say, Dave, okay, so there's a Reformation from the Roman Catholic Church, and Martin Luther came, and there was a great divide there, and Protestantism came, and then you have all these denominations and thousands of denominations that occurred. And you're right, I get that. There are a lot of denominations from that. But I'm going to tell you straight out, that Reformation didn't come with the Eastern Church. The Eastern Church maintained the pure faith of the fathers. It was the Reformation from the church, the Roman Catholic Church, from Martin Luther, who was a monk in the Roman Catholic Church. The Eastern Church has still maintained the purity of it. And they still maintain who they were and what they believed in, the doctrines, the dogmas, everything of the rituals, the sacraments. They maintain the purity from the apostles. So it's really important when we claim the assurity of us being the original church. We don't just say that based on feelings, but we have actual evidence to prove that. We're not like Mormonism and saying, well, pray about it and then you'll feel good. No, I don't believe that anymore. We have real factual evidences to validate the position that we hold, that we are the original church. So the question I have to ask all of you guys is, if the church comes from the apostles, which we validate. We have a whole Orthodox succession and line of validation with that. Why wouldn't you want to know the true worship, the right belief, right? Those are really important questions to ask you. And if it's something that you desire to really want to know, guys, I know we're in the United States. It's America right now, and I understand that. We're a new country. We're nothing like the East, really, in Syria or Turkey. They've been around for thousands and thousands, Middle East, all that, Russia. I mean, thousands and thousands of years. We're a new country relatively. So we have this sort of, I hate to say this, but a cowboy Christianity concept. And that causes problems too, because we think we really know what we're talking about. I am just going to tell you, you have to look at the proof. And I'm going to say right out to Mormonism, you don't have the restored church because we still have the church today. The church is still in existence today, and we could validate that. So when Mormon says the church fell, and it fell when the prophets died and the priesthood was lost, guys, that's completely wrong. That's completely wrong. And that's why I'm here to teach you guys. And those who have ears to listen, they'll hear. And they're going to say, really? So Dave, you're telling me this is the truth? And I'm saying, yeah, it is. Now it's up to you to say if I'm wrong or I'm right. Now, if you want to go on the assumption saying, hey, Dave's crazy, he's nuts, he doesn't know what he's talking about. I mean, that's your position. But I'm not going to say that just because you feel that way and you haven't tested it, that your belief is true. I have tested it, and I'll go with anybody who wants to look at it, and evaluate it, because I have absolutely validated it over and over. I looked at all the information out there, and I've seen that there really was a church. And it's a physical church too. And it's been around for years and years, thousands and thousands of years. It's an apostolic church. I have said before, who is the founder of your church? Study it out. If you look at Eastern Orthodoxy, you'll see that the founder of the church is through the apostles by Christ. Okay, that's it. I'm going to tell you the straight thing about that. So if you know that now, and it's up to you whether or not you want to do it. It's about to rain in here, so I got to shut this off. But God bless you guys. I just want to give this out. People want more and more information, and just want to share this with you. I hope you have a great weekend, and God bless. Bye-bye.